Welcome to Wildcard Wednesday. This is a new feature on the Michele Tafoya podcast every Wednesday. And by the way, have you subscribed yet? Please subscribe, whether you're listening on Rumble, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube. Hit that subscribe button. Make sure you never miss an episode. They will download automatically when you subscribe. We appreciate it. Give us a review too. Wildcard Wednesday, what is it? Well, we're going to take three little stories that we find leading up to Wildcard Wednesday that we want to comment on. And we've got three doozies for you today. So stay tuned for that. You're not going to want to miss these. Maybe you've heard them, but you haven't heard my take on them. And we're going to get to that. But first, I want to tell you about my friends at besthotgrill.com in case you haven't heard me talk about them yet. Football is back and so is tailgating. Whether it's Friday Night Lights, Saturday College, or Pro Sundays, Solaire tailgate infrared grills set up fast, and they heat up so fast, 3 minutes to searing hot temperatures, just like the big backyard Solaires. A Solaire grill will make you the master of the tailgate with the juiciest, most flavorful food in the parking lot. And the fast grilling times give you more time to enjoy the pregame festivities because you turn it on, it heats up fast, you grill, and then you turn it off and it cools down fast and you're ready to go. They are made in the USA. Maybe my favorite part of Solaire. Anytime, everywhere, and all about infrared grills are portable and perfect for any grilling on the go, from picnics to camping, RVs to boating, but especially tailgating. Amaze your tailgating friends with the great, amazing food you're going to grill on your Solaire infrared grill. Learn more about these fantastic grills and Solaire's Try Before You Buy demo rental program at besthotgrill.com. 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 By the way, with the holidays coming up, this is a phenomenal holiday gift. Besthotgrill.com.
Now, it's time for some sanity. It's the Michele Tafoya podcast.
All right, a lot has gone on. We're like 20 days out from the election. This is coming at us like a speeding train. And that's why both of these candidates, in fact, as I sit here right now, I'm recording a town hall that Donald Trump is doing with women in Georgia. And so I'm going to be curious to watch that. And then Kamala Harris is making her debut appearance on Fox News with Bret Baier later tonight. I'll be interested in watching that. In the meantime, both candidates are making these media blitzes. And this includes Charlamagne the God, at least for Kamala Harris it did. And Charlamagne is no fool. Like, he's going to ask some tough questions. And he asked Kamala Harris a little bit about the border and immigration. Let's play that sound for you right now.
But doesn't the Biden administration have to take some blame for the border, though? A lot of the blame? Because, the first 3 years, y'all did get a lot of things wrong with the border.
No, Charlamagne, within hours of being inaugurated, the first bill we passed before we did the Inflation Reduction Act, before we did the Bipartisan Infrastructure Act, before we did the Safer Communities Act to deal with gun violence, first thing we dropped was a bill to fix the broken immigration system.
Kamala, I did a little reading on this, and here's what I found. That bill, and this was explained in February of 2021, that bill would have done three things. Number one, legalize virtually all illegal immigrants in the United States, weaken immigration enforcement, and double future legal immigration. It also would have extended immigration relief to an untold number of criminal aliens. The Biden-Harris U.S. Citizenship Act of 2021 was never even considered in committee by the Democratic majority Congress, underscoring how unserious a proposal it was. So you can say, oh, we tried. And always, folks, always beware of the term, we need a whole of government approach, or we need comprehensive immigration reform. What that translates to is we want a huge, massive bill that we can tuck a lot of things into that you won't pay attention to, or that you'll be distracted by other things. Instead of just taking this thing piecemeal and saying, you know what, moratorium for the border right now, we're going to shut it down. We got to get our act together. We got to get things under control so we don't let in Afghans who later want to shoot people on election day. And so that we don't let in Tren de la Agua, I'm saying it wrong, Tren de Tren de Aragua. Mom, Dad, I'm sorry. I know I'm Hispanic and my mom was a Spanish teacher. So we got to get control of things before we start legislating how we're going to process these people. We got to stop bringing people in for a minute so that we can get this under control. So what she said is, we dropped this bill first thing. Kamala, it's so disingenuous of you. And then to suggest we've cut border crossings by half because Biden dropped some executive order a few months ago to try to make the numbers look smaller. And maybe they've trimmed down at the border, but what about at the airports? Because you've got all these plans, these programs that you're abusing to bring people in by air so that you don't have the footage of the drones at the border, but you got people coming in on aircraft. I mean, I appreciate Charlamagne the God trying to push her to say, we did some things wrong, or, here's how we're going to fix it. But instead, she fires back with this unserious bill that we dropped on day one. It didn't even work in your own caucus, Kamala. So this is your problem. You were and always will be remembered as the borders are. You're going to find root causes rather than protecting Americans. And what do we have now? We have an Afghani who wanted to come in after the disastrous withdrawal from Afghan, who wanted to murder a bunch of people in Oklahoma on election day. We've got Tren de Aragua, which is scaring the crap out of people in New York City, in Colorado, and anywhere else that we're not being told about it. We've got homelessness that I don't ever remember seeing in my lifetime in the United States. And I went to Cal Berkeley, where there was a lot of homelessness, but it's not like it is now. So she's not going to admit this because she's trying to get elected. I understand that, but don't let her get away with it. Don't let her try to fool you that they've ever been serious about the border, because they have not ever been serious about the border. All right, cut number 2. Let's go back to Kamala. This one's rich. At a campaign stop, she decided to accuse Donald Trump of not being transparent about his health. Now, I want you to listen and enjoy this one. Listen to and enjoy this one, because I think what's going to pop into your head immediately is what popped into my head immediately. Go ahead, John. Let's roll the sound.
He's not being transparent with the voters. He's not being transparent. So check this out. He refuses to release his medical records. I've done it. Every other presidential candidate in modern era has done it.
Well, so hold on one second. Wasn't Joe Biden a presidential candidate for a minute, like a few months ago? Wasn't he the Democrats' original candidate for president? And people were clamoring to see his health records because he didn't look that healthy, mentally or physically. And wasn't it Kamala Harris who was telling us that Joe Biden is sharp as a tack, healthiest man I've ever seen. He runs circles around us at the White House. We can't keep up with him, was the line. How's that for transparency? So transparent that they had to kick him out in a little like side coup with Nancy Pelosi, dropping the hammer because he was not healthy. This one's really rich to me, Kamala. And no, you laughing while you're delivering this line doesn't make it any more relatable to me. It's interesting. I saw Debbie Dingell on a show recently. She's a congresswoman from Michigan. Michigan is very much in play. And she said, people need to get to know Kamala. I know her. I know how great she is. You know what? We've gotten to know her over the last 4 years. She was the least popular vice president, I think, in the history of America, or at least since they've started measuring such things. She was a hollow vessel then. She's a hollow vessel now. She reads off a teleprompter. She says things she thinks are cute. She goes on Who's Your Daddy and The View and Charlamagne the God, which actually Charlamagne's probably the most credible of those three. I'll be interested to see how she fares on Bret Baier tonight. She chose Tim Walz as her vice presidential running mate. That was her first act. Wonder how transparent Tim Walz has been with the American people. Boy, he sure is masculine, though, isn't he? Yeah, love his masculinity. Everyone's been raving about his type of masculinity. Listen, I live in his Minnesota, and Kamala maybe should have done some looking around here in his, Tim Walz's Minnesota, to see how his masculinity fared when the fire department, the 3rd Precinct Fire Department was burning down, and how he waited 3 days to bring the National Guard in to calm things down in Minneapolis while the rest of us sat in curfew. And how he shot people with paintballs who were coming out of their house during COVID. I mean, this man's crazy leftist. And don't let his Elmer Fudd accent fool you. And that was her first act, and it was terrible judgment. And when you're under pressure, sometimes you make bad decisions. And Kamala Harris and her campaign were certainly under pressure, and they made a bad decision. So you can talk about being transparent all you want, Kamala. How transparent has your husband been? We know that he impregnated the nanny, the teacher of in his previous marriage, married with child, with a kid who's getting tutored and nannied, and he knocks up the nanny, and we still don't really know what happened. Did she have an abortion? Did she have a miscarriage? Whatever. I think it was a miscarriage. Regardless, he has not full-throatedly denied the story about slapping a woman in a valet line in Cannes at the film festival at some swanky thing. And there are lots of allegations about what a sexist pig he was in his law firm. Allegations, allegations, allegations. Again, Doug Emhoff, not my idea of masculine, folks. Just a thing. But how transparent have they been about his past? Is he suitable to be the first gentleman? And is Tim Walz suitable to be her vice president? So don't talk about transparency, Kamala, unless you've been fully transparent, and I don't think you have. All right, before we give you our third one, which is a doozy, let me tell you about Share Right Health. I know a lot of you are feeling overwhelmed by the increasing cost of health insurance, the increasing cost of everything, which is probably driving your stress through the roof, which means you really need your health insurance. Have you had enough of not having control over your healthcare dollars? Introducing Share Right Healthcare done the right way. At Share Right, you're not just a number, you're part of a caring community. And forget about paying excessive premiums. With Share Right, you stand to save 30 to 50% compared to health insurance. Think about what you could do with all those savings. But it's more than just the savings. Share Right ensures you have access to the care you deserve, precisely when you need it, from routine checkups to unexpected emergencies. With Share Right, your healthcare is their top priority. So empower yourself today. Take control of your healthcare costs. Visit shareright.org/Tafoya to learn more and see how much you can save. You'll be fascinated. Visit ShareRight, ShareRight.org/Tafoya. That's ShareRight.org/TAFOYA for healthcare done the right way. All right, we know Hollywood is all in for Kamala Harris. We've heard it from not all of Hollywood. There have been some outliers who have been brave enough, Dennis Quaid, to come out for Trump. But look, we've got the usual suspects, Oprah and who just recently, Anne Hathaway sang at a fundraiser. And yeah, it's all the rich and famous that don't feel the pinch of inflation the way that you and I do. They don't notice gas prices the way that you and I do. Maybe they feel a little more safer with all their private security, which you and I don't have. And police morale is at an all-time low. I've talked to them and I know this. So yeah, it's real easy for Hollywood. And what's astonishing to me is that there are Jewish people in Hollywood, like our next soundbite, who don't seem to care about the relationship with Israel enough to understand that their best interests might not be served by Kamala Harris in the White House. if they care about Israel. I mean, certainly the Biden-Harris administration has not been really helpful. They say, oh, they've got our full support. We defend their right to defend themselves, but they don't want Israel to go on the offensive. That's what you will never hear. And so Israel's, Benjamin Netanyahu has taken it into his own hands to a certain extent. But here is one such Hollywood cajillionaire, made a ton of money with Seinfeld and with his own show. And he first gets thrown let's call it a steak bone with a lot of meat left on it by Chris Wallace. And Chris Wallace just allows him to take off. Go ahead and roll it, John.
How much has the whole 2020 election and everything that has flowed from it pissed you off?
Oh, I mean, you can't go a day without thinking about what he's done to this country, because he's such a little baby that he's thrown 250 years of democracy out the window by not accepting the results of I mean, it's so crazy. He's such a sociopath. He's so insane. He just couldn't admit to losing. And we know he lost. He knows he lost. And look how he's fooled everybody. He's convinced all these people that he didn't lose. He's such a sick man. He's so sick.
Wow. I feel bad for Larry David. He can't go a day. He can't go a day without thinking about Trump and what he's done to America. Must be really tough when you've got all that money, and then when you participated in a cryptocurrency ad that got Sam Bankman-Fried in prison. It must be tough. It's got to be tough, Larry. I'm sorry for you. First of all, how about that question from Chris Wallace? How much has this pissed you off? The proper journalistic approach would have been to say, what's your reaction been since the 2020 election? Not how much has it pissed you off, because now you're assuming it's pissed him off. And you give him that leeway. You don't give him the freedom to answer the way he wants. You've already set up that it's pissed him off. So sorry, Chris, that's not journalistically sound. And he says, I can't go a day without thinking about how he's thrown 250 years of democracy out the window. So we don't have a democracy anymore? First of all, we are not a democracy. We are a constitutional republic. We have 50 independent states, and we're not a pure democracy as much as you want it to be, Larry, so that the coastal elites can control every election with your dense population centers and all of your wealth. But there are a lot of people between Nevada, it's Nevada, it's not Nevada, and West Virginia, and between North Dakota and Texas, who want to be represented as well. And that's why we have the Electoral College, and we're not a pure democracy. So he said he hasn't accepted the election. He's not hanging out in the White House basement. They didn't have to drag him out. I get what everyone's saying. Oh, January 6th, blah, blah, blah. Ain't you tired? Ain't you tired? It's one of my favorite lines from one of my favorite movies, The Help. When Miss Hilly, the racist played by Bryce Dallas Howard, cannot stop herself from just going on and on and on about her racism. And finally, the character whose name is escaping me, I know it starts with an A, says to her, ain't you tired, Miss Hilly? Ain't you tired? So, Larry, ain't you tired? Listen, the passions are high on both sides, and I understand it. And it's astonishing to me how we've become almost two separate Americas. But there's somebody else who hasn't accepted the legitimacy of the outcome of a certain election, and that's Hillary Clinton. Ain't you tired, Miss Hillary? Ain't you tired? Miss Hillary called Donald Trump an illegitimate president from the get-go. From the get-go. And there are a number of people who have gone through elections that they didn't like the outcomes of, who have complained about it ever since. So this is not unique. What's different about Trump is that this group of, 500 Americans, that's a smidgen of the percentage of the population, went into the Capitol and raised hell. And everyone thinks that that was a result of Trump telling them to do so. And there's a lot of fishiness around that date. And there are many sides to the story, et cetera, et cetera. So Larry, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that every day is such hell for you. And that you think that Donald Trump himself has been able to convince people like that they are not capable of doing their own homework or doing their own reasoning or doing their own thinking about anything. It's astonishing. But then again, I will admit to you, I'm sitting here going, how in the hell could anyone possibly vote for Kamala Harris? This empty vessel who one heartbeat away is Tim Walz, the biggest goofball in the history of American politics. One of the biggest goofballs. Actually, there are quite a few candidates for that, but he's right up there with his pointing and stuff and his Elmer Fudd trying to load a gun and his tampons in boys' bathrooms and all the rest. So those are a few of the stories on this Wildcard Wednesday. I can't wait until next week because as we get closer to the election, more and more is going to come out that we're going to want to talk about. And it is comical. This age we're living in, folks, I'll leave you with one little quick story. I have a niece who's a very good soccer player. She goes to a big high school. She wanted to play powder puff football at the homecoming game. Powder puff. Remember what that is? That's girls playing football. Powder puff football was designed specifically so girls could play some football. And it's kind of a tradition that at the halftime of the homecoming game, these girls get on the field and they play powder puff football. And it's chaotic and it's silly and it's fun for the girls. She wasn't allowed, my niece, to play this year. Her soccer coach said, "You're too valuable to us. We can't have you risk getting injured out there because there are boys on the field now." Last year, even some boys from the football program. Boys from the football program. They were freshmen, didn't matter. They went out there and made their way onto the powder puff team and injured some girls. I think one girl tore her ACL when she was tackled by a boy. This year they said, okay, if you're in the football program, you can't play, but boys can still play. Because you know what? We have to be inclusive. Powder puff now has to be inclusive. So we designed powder puff for girls, but now we have to include boys, even though boys have an entire football program allocated for them. My niece, bless her heart, is disgusted, tried to go to the higher ups and say this is insane. Nobody's listening. When they do listen, they say we got to be inclusive. And that's how crazy a world we're living in right now, folks. I mean, it's freaking nuts. But that's a Wildcard Wednesday for you. In the meantime, between now and next Wildcard Wednesday, be brave, do good. Wait till you see what tomorrow's episode is. A young woman who made her entire career in Democratic politics, went to the DNC and almost threw up. She tells all to us tomorrow. So make sure you subscribe, never miss an episode. In the meantime, be brave, do good, and we will see you next time.
It's so crazy. He's such a sociopath. He's so insane. He just couldn't admit to losing. And we know he lost. He knows he lost. And look how he's fooled everybody. He's convinced all these people that he didn't lose. He's such a sick man. He's so sick.